Hi, my name is Dr. Courtney Heaton with Mississippi State University Extension Equine. Over the next couple weeks, our videos are going to focus on nutrition, broken down into 3 different sections talking about forage, grain, and how to read a feed tag. Did you know that forage should be the cornerstone or foundation of every equine diet? This can come in many different forms, such as pasture, hay, or in processed forms such as pellets, chops, cubes, or chaff. Because forage is so important, we're going to start our nutritional series talking about forages. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about hay selection for our horses. So hopefully this time of year, if you have your horse on pasture, some grass is coming in and this isn't as much of a concern. But for many folks, hay is fed all year round. So let's go ahead and learn a little more about what makes a good quality hay for horses. We want hay that is nice and fresh smelling, ideally to be green in color. You'll notice on this hay, you'll actually see this kind of yellowing on the side. This is most likely from storage and just sun bleaching, which can leach out some of the vitamins. We want hay to be nice and soft, free of weeds, free of insects, free of mold. It should be nice and good smelling. And again, it's really important to know how much you're feeding your horse by weight per day. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But we'll see this hay is nice and soft, nice and fine stems, and I don't see any seed heads. So as a plant grows and reaches more maturity, the amount of undigestible fibers is going to increase in the hay. And as that maturity increases, that plant becomes more mature, the crude protein and some of the energy found in our feed or in our hay is going to decrease. So that's why it's really important to know proper cutting times so that we can have some immature hay. Because if a hay gets very mature, we lose a lot of the nutritional value for our horse. Okay. Here's another sample of hay. This is a grass hay, just like in our previous example. But we'll notice it's a lot darker in color. It has a lot thicker stems to it and is a little more brittle. The darker color might have been due to this getting rained on. It's not moldy, so it's safe to feed, but what that means is, this hay probably sat out a little bit and is not going to be as high of quality as the previous hay. But again, it's important to check it and make sure there's no mold. I also see some mature seed heads in this hay. So this could mean that this is more of a mature hay and might not be as high quality nutritive feeding value. I also want to point out these little guys found in this hay. This is foxtail, and it has very sharp, fine awns, and you'll see as I play with them, they're kind of flaking off, and it's almost like getting a splinter. So some horses are more susceptible to this than others, but as they eat these foxtails, it can create mouth ulcerations and ulcerations down the gastrointestinal tract, and can cause a lot of pain for our horses. So if you see a horse that is dropping their feed and might even be resistant when you're riding, check your hay for foxtail. Ideally, we don't want our hay to have foxtail. I just wanted to give you a side-by-side comparison of these 2 different grass hays. Now, although we can tell a lot just by looking at this hay, the only true way to know the quality and how much nutrition is available to our horse in this hay is by doing a forage analysis test. So you can contact your local county extension agent or your state equine extension specialist to find out more about forage testing. A lot of people get really fixated on the crude protein content in a hay, but most horses, mature horses that are not in work, only require about 8 to 10% crude protein in their total diet. So in a later section, we'll talk about reading a feed tag and how to do some of those calculations. But don't stress out if the best hay in your area is an 8% crude protein hay. It's fine to feed as long as it's clean and soft and free of some of these problems. You can always supplement in that diet a ration balancer or a grain supplement to meet their nutritional needs. This is a compressed bale of Timothy hay. You might see this in a Tractor Supply or your local co-op. Timothy hay grows a lot better up north and is a desirable forage for horses because it's kind of intermediate in its nutritional content, but is very palatable and highly digestible. Now if you look at this hay, it looks really nice. It's nice and green, it's clean, it smells good. It's got some mature seed heads in it, but it's really important that anytime you feed hay, to look at that whole flake and to really make sure that this is suitable for your horse. So being the compressed bale is stored in a plastic wrapping, and this was actually stored improperly and got some rain on it. So on the top it looks fine, but underneath it's definitely not suitable to feed horses. So this is clearly, and it's still wet, and I wish I wouldn't have touched that, but it's clearly very moldy. I would not want to feed any part of this to a horse because we don't know what molds are present in this. It could cause our horses to be sick or colic. Now, I do want to show you a little bit. This is our kind of extreme mold situation, right? Everyone should be able to see that. I want to show you what some kind of mildly moldy hay would look like. So if you kind of zoom in on this, you'll see it's almost this kind of dusty look to it. It's kind of dusty, it's very brittle, and it just doesn't smell very good or very fresh. So again, this hay did not come like this. It was stored improperly and got rained on. So be careful with your hay storage and always make sure you're checking your hay to make sure it's still suitable to feed your horses. An important consideration when feeding your horse is what their nutritional requirements are per day in terms of how much forage. So most horses, when left to their own devices, are going to graze and consume anywhere from 2 to 3% of their body weight per day. Or if you're like my horse, over 3% of her body weight per day. But if your horse is stalled or on a restricted feeding type regimen, at a minimum they need 1% of their body weight per day. So most of the times we'll recommend about 2% body weight per day for your horses, and then it's important to note if they need to lose weight to take away grain first and then extra forage if necessary. Forage is not the bad guy in this situation, right? But one way you can determine how much your horse is getting per day is by weighing your hay. And it might seem tedious and you might be like, do you weigh your hay every day? But what it can do is help you get a feel for how much you need to grab, because each flake is going to be a different weight, right? So you can kind of learn what your hay approximately weighs. So I just wanted to show you this handy fish scale. Again, you can get this at most stores like a Walmart, for example. And I have it zeroed out to account for my hay net and my carabiner. And then I can zero it out, adjust it for that weight, and then weigh out my hay for my horses.
We hope you learned a little more about forage for your horse. If you're interested in learning more about the nutritional content of the hay you're feeding, you can conduct a forage analysis test. Check out this useful extension article on how to prepare samples for testing. Your state equine extension specialist or local county extension agents can point you in the right direction for any help that you may need. There are many places you can send your samples for testing, but we do have a facility right here in Starkville, Mississippi. For more information on sending a sample to the HW-ESIG Nutrition Lab, contact our laboratory coordinator, Kathy Altman, at cma3@msstate.edu. Join us next week as we continue our nutrition talk about grain.